I first of all offer millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our beloved, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. So, Amnaya is like the Veda, that truth and knowledge that has come through the parampara, through the disciplic succession. Amnaya praha. Praha means proclaim. Amnaya praha tattvam. That knowledge that is proclaimed through the Veda, that truth. So we are so fortunate to have access to that. So Amnaya praha tattvam, and then Harim iha paramam. You have that copy also? So Amnaya praha tattvam. What is the praman? In the disciplic succession, following our Guru Vargya. And then the first prameya we discussed yesterday, the day before yesterday. How is Krishna the supreme reality? And we discussed at length Krishna Tattva. Many verses from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc., substantiating the supremacy of Krishna, the absolute reality. And then yesterday we spoke something about Shakti Tattva. So we have Anaya Praha Tattvam, that's the first praman, and then Harim Iha Paramam, that topmost absolute reality of Hari, Krishna. And then Sarva Shaktim is the second group in the first line here. Sarva Shaktim, all of Krishna's energy. And now today it's Rasabdim. So then at the end of today we will have completed the first line of this verse. These four principal truths, the praman and three prameyas about Krishna. Okay? So yesterday we spoke a lot about the Shakti Tattva. And there's some Sanskrit terminologies that some devotees commented are not easy just to grasp initially. But we should understand this Sanskrit language. In English language, there are 300 sound vibrations in the English language. In Sanskrit, there are 55,000. So it's an entire different dimension. The English language, practically speaking, is for barbarians, in a sense. The Sanskrit language is the language of the gods. They have terminologies that describe things we're not even conscious of. I'm saying this today because if some thought that yesterday was quite a lot of Sanskrit, well, today it's going to be twice as much. Because there's no way to describe Rasa Tattva except to try and familiarize ourselves with the various Sanskrit terminologies and their meaning. Like, for example, love in English is just one word, but that same word has like at least 30 or 40 different words in Sanskrit, which are aspects of that one emotion, which we're going to discuss something today. So if you try and replace all those terminologies with English words, actually what will happen is after some years, if you haven't captured the Sanskrit word, it'll minimize the intensity of what's trying to be described. Do you understand? If you say mellows of love, it doesn't really have the same feeling after you've considered what is the meaning of rasa for so many years. Rasa is a very special term and so on. It means something very selective. It's a very powerful word that we need to get to know how that is. So there's one very beautiful verse. It says, Vyatita bhavana vartma. yash chamatkara barubi, kridi satvojvala badam swadate sarasa mata. This means that it's a description of rasa, and it's saying that that which is beyond imagination, heavy with wonder, and shining within that pure heart, that is the nature of rasa. Beyond imagination, heavy with wonder, and shining within that pure sadhak's heart. That is rasa. So it's this rasa that we're going to discuss today is a very esoteric. It's not. There is rasa in the material world, but it is called mundane rasa or mundane exchanges, and it's very limited, and it's very temporary. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes it as being contemptible. It doesn't have a great deal of value because it's principally focusing on two individual jivas enjoying themselves. It's not about the object of our transcendental affection or vision or path. It's about two individuals enjoying something here in the material mundane world. But this is the best we have until we know about Krishna and we understand what is our relationship with him. But that relationship in the material world, if you put it alongside the transcendental rasa, there is absolutely zero comparison practically. So try and understand the huge difference between these two, because some of the descriptions may seem to be similar to what we perceive in this perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Everything in this world has its origin in the spiritual world, but it's all back to front. It's all with a negative contamination over it because we are thinking that we are the enjoyers. We are thinking that this world is for our benefit, for us to get pleasure from. And as long as we keep seeking our own independent pleasure here, we're going to be denied the highest truth. So we always have a choice. This is we were saying yesterday, the jiva's independence is there so that he can love, so that he can develop his relationship with the Lord. If he wasn't independent, if, say, for example, a great master from that world came and just sprinkled some powder across us all, and then all of a sudden, yes, we loved God, would that be really satisfying? By some sort of magical, mystic arrangement, all of a sudden, yes, we loved God. That wouldn't be completely. It has to come from us. But who are we? But who are we in the relationship? You know, it's like taking some hallucinogenic drug. It doesn't take you to the highest place, which is coming from the very deepest place of our hearts. That deepest place in our hearts, our own identity and swarup, when that comes forward in its attraction to Krishna, and when that nature wants to bring pleasure to Krishna, that is the most satisfying place of consciousness that Jiva has ever experienced. Yes, perfect, perfect, perfect. Yes, yes. Even if you're given prem, if you're given so much mercy, often when we chant these different prayers to Gurudev, I often ask the devotees, what is the mercy you're asking for? We're crying out for mercy. Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya, give me your mercy. What is the nature of the mercy we're asking for? We have to try and a bit more defined here. Try and, if we're serious, if we're practicing seriously, then we'll have a clear idea. Oh, Gurudev, I want you to please purify my lust. Please purify my anger. Please purify whatever, difficulty, etc. we can be more, oh, please, Gurudev, give me an understanding of my natural attraction for Krishna. Something more focused like that. So we have to become more specific. But now, in this topic today is the topic of Rasa Tattva. It's not Prem Tattva. Prem Tattva is something different. Prem Tattva is the 10th Mula. Tad Priti. This Priti Tattva is different to Rasa Tattva. Rasa Tattva is more the analysis of that rasa itself. Srimati Radharani herself is saying in Prem Samput by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, when who's the is it Shamali when Krishna dresses up? Huh? No, Shamali. No, Shamali is disguised. It's Krishna disguised. I think her name is Shamali. And he comes before Radha to hear Radha's love-laden description of her relationship with Krishna. And at this point, Radha is saying to Krishna, no one can understand Prem. No one can understand these topics. I'll read it here. She's saying that if you want to understand my love for Krishna, then listen, Prem is so great that even the knowers of the Vedas cannot know it, nor others who claim to know it. One who teaches Prem to an inquisitive person cannot know it, nor can their hearer know it. It's all just imitation. Prem disappears before both the discriminant and indiscriminate person. But the pure-hearted soul who is free from discrimination, Jai Radha Gopinath Ki Jai, Satchinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai, and who is full of sacred greed, is able to approach the throne of natural love. So this is about Prem. But Prem is the final Mula. Prem is the description of the final sweetness of Radha and Krishna's relationship and our service to that. That's in the 10th Mula. But today is Rasa Tattva. How is Krishna that Rasa Tattva, and what is Rasa Tattva? So Gurudev has described that Krishna is like a music shop owner who has thousands and thousands of beautiful instruments, but he can't play any of them. But he has a friend, and they can play every single instrument absolutely beautifully. So we can understand this from a material analogy, that we are filled with all the potential for different kinds of feelings and emotions. But those feelings and emotions will only be triggered by certain individuals triggering those. For example, our mother will trigger a mood of childlike behavior within us, perhaps. Father will perhaps make us feel more responsible in different areas, depending on our relationships. And each person that we meet will bring out a different sort of aspect of our own nature. So this is what it's like with Krishna. He's packed with all rasa, but the actual tasting of that rasa cannot happen unless his Shakti, unless Sri Radha comes and plays those instruments. Only then can that rasa actually emerge from Krishna. So two are necessary. Yes. Gurudev has told us many times that this body that we have now can come to the stage of bhav, but it doesn't have the capacity to even reach the stage of prem. He said it would explode, as Saja Maharaj has just said. That body would actually explode. It doesn't have the ability to absorb that highest understanding of what is that full-blown relationship ultimately in our service to Radha and Krishna. This Krishna Prem is on many levels, as we will discuss, and Krishna Prem, like it's a gradation of attraction to Krishna, because as I said just before, it has to come from the very core of our hearts. Like now, you can say you have Krishna Prem. We are on our way to understanding, in process to coming to that conclusion. But that Krishna Prem itself is not a static thing. It's not that somebody, oh, they get Krishna. What is Krishna Prem? What is Prem? It's my love and my attraction. It's various degrees. Because after Prem in transcendental consciousness is Sneha, Man, Pranaya, Rag, Anurag, Bhav, Modan, Mohan, Ruda, Adiruda, etc. So all of these different gradations of that one affection, of that Prem. So everything is flowing and everything is increasing. It's described that in the spiritual world, everything is floating in an ocean that is governed by the dynamic of Prem Amrita Plavanat. This flood of Prem is what is controlling the inhabitants. So it's not something that, oh, yes, now Nayani has Prem. Now she has had an experience of something beyond this world entirely, and her nishta has become irrevocable, and her ruchi and her asakti and her bhav all are manifesting, and then prem has been touched. But then where does it go from there? This is my understanding. It's not all of a sudden that particular 4-year-old little girl, Nayani, is all of a sudden walking on the clouds all day long. She's still in that body. She still has to go through those different, but at the same time, her nishta, her asakti, her bhav, her glimpses of prem are all very much increased and speeded right up. This is my understanding, limited understanding. Because I know that everything is in motion. It's not that, oh, here is prem. Yes, now you have prem. What does that mean? How can someone give you love? Love comes from the core of our hearts for the object, doesn't it? How can it be otherwise? Huh? Yes, it's our spontaneous attraction. That's what love is. So are you spontaneously attracted? Or to what degree are we spontaneously attracted? What is the um, strength of our attachment or attraction? This is the process that he's saying to receive this. But now we have to, or what I'd like to do, according to this Mula, is discuss Rasa Tattva. What is Rasa Tattva? It's very complex. It's complex because it's in an area of vocabulary that we have never gone into prior to our examining Rasa Tattva. There's nothing, there's nothing familiar. Like previously, for example, when we're discussing Krishna Tattva, you may have gone to church when you were a little boy or girl, whatever, and you may have grown up with an understanding of the Supreme Lord. But this idea of rasa is completely foreign to us. So it's not easy to actually make an entrance in. So don't be bewildered. Just be calm and absorb the language and know that at some point in time it will all become very simple. Sometimes we have to hear for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 20 lifetimes But at one point the light will go on, and we will start to understand these topics more clearly, not just understanding them, but developing a little bit of greed or a strong bit of greed. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatomniti telabite tatra lolyam api mulyam ekalam. This greed, this lolyam, is what we are desirous for. Dear Gurudev, dear Lord, please give me this greed to want to hear these topics more, to want to enter into this Rasa Tattva. Okay, so it is very complex.
I just heard it today was talking about different stages from his and Gurudev said even in the beginning stages when you're in the Nocturne ritual, he said these other stages like Nishta, Ruchi, he said they're very small. Even in the beginning stage, you have some Ruchi, you have some Nishta. So he said as you go through the different levels, then you may you get free from an artist, and then you go into the, but gradually, each different stage is completed. Not in the beginning, or not that you complete one, and then you go into the next stage. But a little bit of Ruchi, a little bit of
Mhm.
there, and then a little bit of
Yeah, yeah.
the other one.
I've explained this before.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. But I've also explained in the recent Shikshastakam classes, this, going through these different. Look, I'm going to be quite strict now. We're going to have to stay on track because otherwise we're not going to get through this. So, for anyone who's listening to this recording, there's a sheet called the Study Notes on Rasa Tattva that goes along with this particular class so that we can visualize, we can see the words and get a deeper impression perhaps. So Rasa Tattva is the analysis that Srila Rupa Goswami has given us in a very clear fashion. Just like yesterday we were describing, yes, just like yesterday we were describing Krishna's energies. How remarkably fortunate are we to have the language to describe his energies. It's remarkable. But even more fortunate to describe what is rasa, how does it manifest, what are the ingredients. So Rupa Goswami, in his utter brilliance, has given us this whole analogy. Now there's four principal components, or we can say five principal components that we're going to discuss. The first is sthayi bhav. I think most people are familiar with this word. Maybe Adam is not. Sthayi. Sthayi means fixed. Your fixed mood in relationship to Krishna. And there's five principal moods that everyone falls into one of these particular moods, categories. There's Shantaras, that mood of neutrality. It's described by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that the conditioned soul is suffering for so long in this material world, going through so much trials and tribulations, and when he starts to understand the beauty of the Supreme Lord and makes a connection of just worship towards him, then great peace envelops his consciousness. And that great peace is described as shanta. It's like it's not really moving in such a dynamic relationship directly with Krishna. It is a type of relationship, but it's something of a neutral place. This shantaras, it's described as a more like peacefulness. We are not suffering the material whips anymore. It's beyond liberation because it's a natural sthayi. So this shantaras is there. In Braj, this shantaras is very minimal indeed. But in Vaikuntha, there are only 2.5 rasas altogether in Vaikuntha. In the Vaikuntha planets, there is Shantaras, Dasyaras, and a little bit of Sakyaras. That Sakyaras is not of the same nature as the Sakyaras in Vrindavan. It's a different type of Sakyaras. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this. There are two types of Sakyaras. But this Sakyaras in Vaikuntha is much more of an Aishwarya mood. So remember this. In Vaikuntha, 2.5 rasas. But in Goloka Vrindavan, there are 12 rasas. So this we will also discuss tomorrow when we discuss Jiva Tattva, because this is important to know. So the first Sthayi Bhav is Shantaras. And the second, no, 2.5 in Vaikuntha, but he's asking for Dwarka. Ayodhya, I mean. I can't tell you straight off. I would only speculate. But it's certainly not the same as Golok. In Goloka Vrindavan, it's 12. It's 5 primary and 7 secondary. So Shantaras is first. And then is Dasyaras, this mood of servant. This is very prominent. This is most prominent in Vaikuntha. In Braj, this same Dasya Bhav is there, but it's very different. It's not mixed with this awe and reverence. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he describes that the mood in Vaikuntha is something of inferiority, because they are feeling so much less than Lord Narayan. So it has a different dynamic to it. There's the superiority and inferiority. Whereas in Braj, the servants are not feeling in that same mood of being inferior in any way to Krishna. They just take such pleasure, like Raktak, Paktak, etc. They are Krishna's servants in Nandagan, and they dress and bathe and so on like that, prepare so many clothes for him and everything like that. So beautiful. The pastimes of Krishna's servants in Braj, but they're different completely to the service mood in Vaikuntha. So this Dasya Ras is the second. And then is Sakya Ras. Sakya Ras is friendship. And there is a little bit of friendship in Vaikuntha, but not so much prominent, because it's all mixed with so much Aishwarya, awe and reverence. And we understand from Raghavatman Chandrika how there is actually more Aishwarya in Goloka Vrindavan, but it's covered with billions of times more prem and sweetness. So the Aishwarya is not lacking there, but the Aishwarya is prominent in the Vaikuntha worlds. So this Sakyaras is the third. Sthayi Bhav, fixed emotional exchange with the Lord. And then Vatsalya Bhav. Vatsalya Bhav is not present at all in Vaikuntha. Who is Lord Narayan's mother and father? He doesn't have. There is no Vatsalya Bhav in Vaikuntha. So Yashoda, of course, on Nanda Baba, and then in Mathura, Dwarka, Vasudev, they have that same Vatsalya Bhav. But that Vatsalya Bhav there is of an Aishwarya taste. It's not the same. They see actually their son. They still feeling it's my son, but my son is the Supreme Lord. They're seeing him like this. He manifests in the dungeon of Kamsa in a four-armed form, like a 16-year-old youth. This is how they first see their son. So they acknowledge him as being Lord Narayan, or like Lord Narayan, but they still have a feeling of paternal relationship with him. But the full-blown paternal relationship, of course, is Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba. And then is Madhurya Ras, or conjugal Ras. And this is, of course, by the gopis of Vrindavan. And there are different types of conjugal Ras. There is the conjugal of Dwarka, which is called Swakiya, where Krishna is married. We described this the other day. So this marital relationship. But in Vrindavan, there's this Parakiya, this relationship of paramour. So these are the 5 principal rasas that we all have one of these rasas. Yes. These 4 ingredients actually. Ingredients means something that sits on top of the lake of the Staibhav. The Staibhav is the lake. For example, we are going to be talking about what causes the bhav to rise. That is Vaibhav. We will discuss that in a moment. And then what are the expressions when that bhav begins to rise? There are 2 types of expressions. There are internal and external. And then sometimes there are waves on that lake of other bhavs, vyabhichari bhavs. So these 4 are the ingredients that rest on the lake of the sthayi bhav. The sthayi bhav is the fixed emotion. So this is all we're discussing right now, is the sthayi bhav. We're just going step by step slowly. We will come to the ingredients, or the samagri are the ingredients when mixed together create the rasa. But first you have to have a foundation. You have to have the platform of what is it going to be mixed on top of. What is your individual relationship with Krishna? Okay? So that I'm just explaining very analytically. So there's these 5 principal sthayi bhavs. And then there's also 7 gona bhavs. These gona bhavs they can take prominence. With the sthayi bhav is fixed, but these gona bhavs can sometimes take prominence. These gona bhavs are adbhuta, astonishment, or hasya, laughter, or rudra, anger, or bhayam, fear, or bibats, disgust, or viraha, chivalry, or karuna, compassion. These are the 7, they're called gona bhavs, or secondary moods that are there. So just be patient, and I'm just going to say all these things, and you can look at the paper, and you can chant Hare Krishna, and give time to having realization of some degree on these topics. First of all, we just have to explain in an analytical way. This is all I can hope to do. And then in your own time with your bhajan, with your chanting, meditate on these topics. Actually, just by hearing these topics brings us to another state of consciousness completely. Because we're talking about the transcendental exchanges in the spiritual world. It's nothing at all to do with this world. So immediately the consciousness is feeling enlivened just by contemplating that dynamic. And we should feel entirely blessed that we actually have access to this particular tattva. By the mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami, he is giving us the terminologies, etc., and the descriptions of it. So, we have these 5 sthayi bhavs. And then we have the vaibhav. The vaibhav is the cause of tasting this rasa. What is the cause? So it's described that there are 2 causes, in a sense. There is the support or shelter. This is called alamban. These terminologies we will get to know quickly. So this alamban is the support of rati. And it's described that there are 2 considerations in this. There is Krishna himself, because he is also wanting to taste rasa more than anybody. So he also is described as the support in his own way. This is called Vishaya Alamban. He is the enjoyer. And then there is the Ashraya Alamban. That is the person who is facilitating that enjoyer. That is the Bhakta. So there are 2, the Vishaya and the Ashraya Alamban. So this Alamban is like the receptacle for the rasa. The sthayi bhav is the lake, and the lake is contained within this alamban, within this support, this shelter. Can you understand? Even if you don't understand, that's okay. I don't understand. I'm just saying this language for my purification, and I'm hoping that Gurudev will give me in some future birth, some proper understanding of this. But I can understand the science of it, so to speak, the analysis of it, the description of it. I can understand. Okay. And then the Vaibhav is what is now. The Vaibhav is the cause. What is going to cause this ripple, this emotion? What is going to cause this to develop? Because, as I said before, the rasa is always dynamic. It's always moving. So it can't just be a flat lake. There has to be movement in it. So there has to be cause for the movement. So this cause is described as into this alamban and the udipan. The udipan is quite simple to understand. Udipan is the stimulus. You hear the sound of a flute. You see a peacock. You see Jamuna Devi. Immediately you can remember Krishna. You can smell the beautiful flowers of Vrindavan. Immediately you can remember Krishna. You can see a haze in the distance and some people wearing saris carrying pots on their heads. Immediately you remember the gopis. This is a stimulant. You can hear the sound of the conch shell. This can be a stimulus to remembering the Lord. Okay? So this udipan is the stimulus, and the alamban is that in where that receptacle or the support for this rasa to manifest. Okay? You understand something? And now, what's going to be described is, well, actually now I want to jump to the Vyabhichari bhavs. Okay? I've written on this sheet of paper. I took a long time to write all this out yesterday. Did it all in one day, just for you. And I wrote every single Vyabhichari down, bhav down. I can remember many years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, I had this list, and I had them beside my bed when I was staying just down the road here. And I would just see regularly what are all these 33 Vyabhichari bhavs. I wanted to become familiar with them. I wanted to sort of have some understanding of them. So for me, it has to be some familiarity. Yes. No, I said something of the Udipan. So I said the peacock feather. I said the Jamuna. I said the dust of Vrindavan, the flowers, the fragrance, etc. This is all Udipan or stimulus. So much Udipan. So in these Vyabhichari or Sanchari bhavs, it's described here 33 internal spiritual emotions. Now, these are very important indeed, because these Vyabhichari bhavs are what cause that lake of the Sthai bhav to form ripples and waves, sometimes towering waves. Sometimes not just one Vyabhichari bhav, but 3 or 4 can come simultaneously. And sometimes these waves can even crash into each other. These contradictory emotions can actually crash into each other. This is how Rupa Goswami has described this. So these 33 are very interesting because most of them are like of a disparaging type of nature. Negative. It seems to be negative. But of course that negativity is of the utmost positivity when it increases the swell of the ocean of that Sthai bhav. So let me just read here. what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written. So 33 internal spiritual emotions which emerge from the nectarine ocean of Staibhav cause it to swell and then merge back into that ocean. So this is the nature. Sanchari and Vyabhichari are the same. It means to follow. There's a beautiful description of its etymology here. Because they are specifically directed towards and offer special assistance to the Staibhav. The Staibhav is the principal. The Staibhav is the king or the emperor. These others are coming like princes and so on to that lake. They are known as Vyabhichari bhavs. The word Vyabhichari here has a special technical meaning. It can be broken down into three parts. Abhi, which means towards, and chari is going towards, so going towards. In other words, an emotion that moves distinctly in the direction of the Staibhav and that serves to intensify it is called Vyabhichari bhav. So this is fortifying, it's building up the Staibhav, it's making areas more prominent within the lake of the Staibhav. It's bringing this swell up. These are descriptions of the emotional experiences one can become aware of in his relationship with Radha and Krishna. It's not that when we are in an advanced stage of bhav or even prem, we will even be remotely considering this analysis. It's exactly as I've described many times, learning the notes in order to play a tune. You're not thinking about the notes at all when you're playing the tune. But this will help the neophyte sadhak have great respect and regard for the immensity of this Rasa Tattva, of what is this about? What is this emotional exchange actually about? It's so splendid, it's so high, it's so exalted. It is transcendental. This is giving us some words, some indication of the enormity of that transcendental reality. This is really the most it's giving, I believe. It's not that when you understand all this, that it's going to make the slightest bit of difference to you if you're, for example, I give you an example. It's like when Radharani, she leaves the Rasa Leela. Krishna goes to Sringaravat and he pacifies her man. And then they begin to walk through the forest together. At this time, Srimati has taken on a heroine's mood called Swadina Bhartika. It's the highest mood that a heroine can have for her lover. It's when she has controlled her lover completely. Swadina Bhartika. She is completely in control. She feels completely satisfied that her lover is ready to do her any bidding. Krishna, to reciprocate that mood, has taken on what is called a dakshin mood, very submissive to Radharani's Bhaumya Bhav. Radharani, she has this strong mood, contrary mood sometimes. And Krishna reciprocates with that by becoming very submissive. But at one point, as they're walking, Krishna says, "Oh, do you want to come to a flower bed or do you want to keep on walking?" Then all of a sudden, Srimati becomes like in Dakshin, like the same as Krishna. She says, "Oh, I don't mind whether we keep going or whether we go to a flower. I'm so tired, I don't mind what we do." All of a sudden, she's taking a submissive role. So then both of these barbs have become the same. So then there's no real big waves happening. This is when Krishna disappears, because the rasa has actually come down for a moment. This has to be built. It's through so many schemes, through so many pastimes. These rasas are increasing, unfolding, and then going back again, and then again coming up, and then going back again. It's all like so turbulently rolling. We know our own hearts and minds sometimes, to some degree, in a perverted way, can go through these rolling different exchanges. But we're trying to appreciate the enormity of that spiritual reality, how they roll through these huge waves of feelings. So this is how the Rasik Acharya, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, has described this particular moment when these two barbs become similar. So there's no strong waves on top of this. So try and bear this in mind, how the rasa works. We're trying to analyze how the rasa works. We're trying to get a little picture, something, so that these words don't just mean something like in Chinese or Russian, but they have some deeper sort of significance to us. This is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, what Sajjan Maharaj has said. If we think for one whisper of a second, if we have even a scent that I am male or female, if we're identifying with this material body, we cannot even begin to enter the realm of Ras in the heart. It doesn't exist on the platform of gender. It's beyond gender. There is only one Purush, that is Krishna, and we are all Prakriti, we are all feminine. So if we have even a whisper in our lives, in our etc., that I am male or female, then you cannot even enter into this. This is why there is a group that misbehave in this sense, because they perform activities on the bodily platform in the name of rasa. These are called sahajya or prakrit sahajya. They perform that. And they try and speak about all these topics, but secretly they're actually engaging in bodily activities as if they were actually in some sort of spiritual rasa. It's totally, utterly contradictory. If you're thinking you're male or female, you can't even enter into this realm. Nevertheless, don't be disheartened, because I'm sure most of us are very solidly on the platform if I am a male or I am a female. Perhaps many of you. But in our meditation, in our bhajan, in our chanting, in our internal personal absorption, perhaps in the early morning hours of the day, even for a moment, a little curtain may be drawn by the mercy of Sri Vrindavan Dham, by the mercy of Guru, by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, by the mercy of Nam himself. Some glimmer of that eternal realm may manifest to me. So the purpose of us speaking about it in this way is at least to try and ignite or inspire some greed, some desire, because everything is motivated by our desire. How can I have some desire? Do I even want this? We have to think that also. Some will think, hell no. Just give me, some more pizza and Coke and I'm fine. Let me sleep longer and this and that. And I'm enjoying with so many ladies. I'm enjoying with so many men. Leave me alone. I'm having a great material rasa here. Why do I want the spiritual rasa? Only when the material rasa is finished. There's no more taste that I'm getting from that place, that this greed can start to arise for this spiritual reality. This is our process. This is everything that we're doing is actually about this. So today we're just going through the terminologies to give us greater respect and appreciation of this transcendental realm. This transcendental realm has been described by Rupa Goswami. This is what Rasa Tattva is. So now in these Vyabhachari bhavs, they're like moving in the direction of the sthai bhav. The Vyabhachari bhavs are made known by one's speech, by limbs such as the eyes and eyebrows, and by sattva, or in other words, by the anubhavs arising from the sattva. Sattva means existence. Existence is my nature, is my body, my spiritually conceived of body. And then all these Vyabhachari bhavs move towards the sthai bhav. Therefore, they are also called sanchari bhavs. The word sanchari means moving. The Vyabhachari bhavs are like waves that emerge from the nectarine ocean of the sthai bhav and cause it to swell. And then they merge back into the ocean again and disappear. So this, why I've jumped ahead from the anubhavs and sattvika bhavs, is to, first of all, explain or describe these emotions. Now, what is resulting from these emotions will be the anubhavs and sattvika bhavs. So basically, there's only 4 terminologies to learn. There is the Vyabhachari bhavs, there's the sthai bhav, the vaibhav, or other 5. First there is sthai bhav, then there is vaibhav, then there is Vyabhachari bhav, and then there is the result of this rasa, how it's expressed, that is the anubhavs and the sattvika bhavs. These bhavs are the expression of those waves rolling on that platform of the sthai bhav. Can you understand a little bit of the picture? Just try with a mundane mentality, just catch a picture. And then, by Gurudev's mercy, in time, more interest will be inspired, and I'll want to know more and more. If I become curious about these things, this is the greatest mercy. But if I think it's all too much Sanskrit and this and that and the other, and I'll just go back to I'm not the body and this platform, then how can I get that strength to make that, get that inspiration? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Sajjan Maharaj is saying that in that book, Confidential Truths or Secrets of Bhajan or Bhajan Rahasya, it's a very small book. It came out just before Bhajan Rahasya. These are also described. But you have these sheets now, and please keep these sheets. They're of value because it's just all capsulated. You have them all in one place. You have what is the... Actually, I have an upgrade on this already. This is just the first edition. I have a second edition that you can do. So you can read these through individually. I won't read them all through now because...
When the arbitrary laws come into play in the law, do they become prominent or...
Yes. See, he's asking, when the Vyabhachari bhavs come into play on the lake of the sthai bhav, do they become prominent? They become as if they are the principal rasa. But it's just passing. It's just a wave. We can see, for example, in a mundane example, if somebody gets sometimes angry. It's not their nature to be angry, but sometimes anger will just waft through their mind. Or sometimes they might be, but they're not really, that's not their nature, so to speak. Or somebody's nature might be very agitated or aggressive all the time. And then sometimes some peacefulness comes in. So that's like another wave coming through. So in either case, we can see how this actually happens in our sense. We have to make some parallel with this world to try and understand the analysis of it. But understand at the heart of it, unless we've understood that we are not male or female predominantly, but in fact are transcendental females, then really we can't actually enter into a taste of this. So now by these vyabhacharis, caused by the vaibhav, which is the alamban and the udipan, then the anubhavs and sattvika bhavs will manifest. First are the anubhavs. The anubhavs are definitely of an external nature. There's some consciousness of what I'm doing when the anubhavs manifest. For example, there are 13.
Physical expression?
Beg pardon?
Physical expression?
Yes, the physical expressions. I didn't go into any detail about the Vyabhachari bhavs. Maybe I should just say, I'll just talk one or two. So the first one is called nirveda, self-disparagement. To reproach oneself, considering oneself to be fallen and worthless, is called nirved. Nirved arises from great distress, feelings of separation, jealousy, non-performance of duty, and performance of non-duty. In nirved, anxiety, tears, change of color, feelings of worthlessness, heavy sighing, and other anubhavs are manifest. So understand, these are just waves that come and go. You're suddenly feeling this. This particular one we're looking at is like an aspect of humility. And humility is the pinnacle of prem. The higher the humility, the higher the prem. So this is like, it has a flavor of humility there. The heroine or the Saki or even Krishna is suddenly feeling this mood is coming through on his thigh bar. He's feeling something like that. These are feelings, these 33 feelings. And they're going to take the consciousness to a deeper sense of intimacy. All of these will take to a deeper sense of intimacy and communication with the lover. When you feel this disparagement, this self-disparagement, and then you finally see the lover, and the lover is so welcoming and accommodating that actually disappears, that wave goes away. But while he's not actually present, Sri Radha is feeling such extreme vipralamba, such extreme separation. So this within that separation is the highest union, but it has to go through some stages to reach that pitch of separation where the union becomes manifest. It's not immediately union. It's not just when Krishna goes away, all of a sudden there's union. It has to go through all these different stages. Really, what we're entering into a world of loving emotion. This is what, actually they say that women can understand these much more than men. I shouldn't even be explaining it really. Because women by nature have more emotions, it seems, than or can express them more than men do. Men have more of a rational consciousness, usually, and women have more of an emotional consciousness, usually. Not always, of course, there's so many exceptions, but very often the women can appreciate these truths more than in a male body. We're not male or female.
Is that all planned, or does that come about like when the Yamachari laws and honor laws come out? Is that all pre-planned, or does that come out by the influence of the unicorn?
By the influence of the circumstances, these Vyabhachari and Sanchari bhavs will arise.
Just like if I'm exchanging with you, sometimes I may say something, you have something that comes in that's not normal,
Right.
like that. It's not that sort of thing.
No, these Vyabhachari bhavs are definitely not preordained. Everything is utterly spontaneous on this platform. But let's just for a moment, I'll just read one more Vyabhachari bhav because these Vyabhachari bhavs are so important in our entering into just a glimmer of what is Rasa Tattva. Because these are the constant waves, and it's described, as I said before, that sometimes 2 or 3 of these Vyabhachari bhavs will come from one direction and you will be immersed in that. And then all of a sudden, from another direction, another wave will come and cause a crashing of waves, like in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body. Mahaprabhu was demonstrating the highest Ashtasattvika bhavs ever seen, ever witnessed. And it was like 2 enormous waves sometimes were crashing, literally. He is Krishna, and this enormous wave of Sri Radha would sometimes crash amazingly, astonishingly within him. And he would just go into the most extreme states of consciousness, and that would be exhibited in his body. These are what Sattvika bhavs are. Just like when Mahaprabhu managed to get out of the Gambhira, all the doors were locked, and he went to the Svingadwaha gate, and they eventually found him. The cows were licking the body. He looked like a tortoise practically. All his limbs were contracted into his body. He was foaming at the mouth. His eyes were upwards in his head. The cows were just licking his body and mooing. But this is a result of these enormous waves crashing into each other, exhibiting this Ashtasattvika bodily condition of Mahaprabhu. So these Vyabhacharis are very important to appreciate. This is why I took the time to type them all up and make them into, so you can stick them on a wall, and over the next year or two, you can just be reading them through and gradually getting an idea of the amazing nature of this spiritual reality, this world of nothing but a flood of emotion. Premamrita plavanat. This flood of prem is what is taking place in Goloka Vrindavan. If we don't hear about these topics, how can we make progress? How can we move ahead? We must hear about these topics. We know that we're not qualified to enter or even really speak on these topics, but nevertheless, if we keep them buried and never bring them out, how will we begin to understand them? I don't understand them. I'm speaking for some comprehension. If I speak about them, perhaps some understanding will come. How can I understand them? I'm not on that transcendental platform. I'm not going to imitate and pretend that I am. What sort of, message would you get? That's what we're doing. We're analyzing these from our own platform, from our own adhikar. But we've got the terminology here, and we've got the description of the terminology. This is in when Brajanath and Vijay Kumar, they go to Puri, and they hear under Gopal Guru Goswami all this Rasa Tattva. I've just finished the completion of the third part narration of Jaivadharma. I've just read out loud that whole, and it's so difficult. I didn't want to do it for so many years because I knew how difficult it was. It's just repeating Sanskrit term after Sanskrit term about all the different types of moods here, the different types of moods there. And it's almost like it's so difficult, you can't understand it because it is transcendental completely. But the more we familiarize ourselves with it, gradually it will lose its fearfulness, so to speak. We'll become more attracted to it. In that attraction, if that greed can be inspired to actually understand the sweetness of this, then surely some mercy will come and I'll be able to have some little bit of entrance into these topics. But otherwise, we're living here in Vrindavan. How can we not hear something of these topics? And this, in the Dasa Mula, is the Rasab. How do you say? Rasabda. Rasabdi. Go for it, go for it.
When Yagasari Bhavas are manifested, they become common. Does that increase or decrease like the Astasatvika Bhavas in the
Yes. The Astasattvic and the Anubhavs, we haven't discussed these two bhavs, but I think most of you, and I should discuss now before I go on. The Anubhavs are more or less the conscious exhibitions or expressions of the inner moods. Like, for example, it's described here, there are dancing, the voice choking up, singing, speaking loudly. There's some consciousness of me doing this. There's something from the mental quantum that has influenced my doing this. I've thought about it. Stretching the body, hiccuping, yawning, sighing, neglecting the presence of others, drooling, laughing, wailing, grinding the teeth. These are saying 13, but I've only written down 12. Oh. Oh, thank you, Tungavidya. Typing mistake there. There are two 12s. So there are 13, and these anubhavs are understood by the consciousness that you're doing that to some degree, as opposed to the sattvika bhavs, when you're not even aware of what you're doing. It's like those asta sattvika bhavs of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we just described. He was not slightly aware, or when he dived into the ocean and his whole body elongated, he was not slightly aware of the condition of his body. This was something that was coming from another place, from the spiritual world directly, and was impacting his body, and it was exhibiting itself in that particular way. These are sattvika bhavs. These, when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he witnessed Mahaprabhu when he fainted in front of Lord Jagannath when he first came to Puri. Remember? And the guards, they wanted to move him, and immediately Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, no, no, don't touch his body. And then they held some cotton up. They could see he was barely breathing. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was totally astonished. He'd never in his life witnessed anything of this nature. He had read perhaps something of these, but he'd never witnessed someone actually experiencing these astonishing, exalted bhavs. These Ashtasattvika bhavs are the highest bhavs. So we have Anubhav and we have Sattvika. Sattvika means the foundation. The foundation has become like a sea of emotion. The Anubhavs are following the consciousness to some degree. Anu, they're following. So there's some consciousness that I'm dancing or singing. Understand the differences between the two. So when the waves of these Vyabhachari bhavs, which are caused by the Vaibhav, act on the Staibhav, the lake of the Staibhav, they manifest in two different ways. First of all, externally, the Anubhavs, and secondly, the Sattvika bhavs, internally. That's just like a single package in that last sentence I've said of the terminology of the Rasa Tattva. Okay?
So they're consciously manifested by the person experiencing love.
There is some consciousness of what he's doing. If you're experiencing an Anubhav, you're suddenly dancing in ecstasy. You don't care what other people think. You're drooling at the mouth. You're not so conscious. Now listen, I'll just describe, just a minute, Maharaj, because I didn't describe this first. I should describe the 8 Ashtasattvika bhavs, and then we'll come. So the 8, their names are Stamba, Sveda, Romancha, Swarabhanga, Kampa, Vaivarna, Ashru, and Pralaya. Just like every single morning we sing, Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nita Gita, Aditya Madhyan Manasara, Romancha, Kampa, Shuta, Rangabhajo. These are these Ashtasattvika bhavs in Mahaprabhu. So Stamba, becoming stunned, Sveda, perspiration, Romancha, there's no consciousness, you can't make perspiration come. Romancha, standing of the hairs on end. It's not something you learn how to do, although some sahajis can do that. Faltering of the voice, trembling, pallor or change of color, tears, loss of consciousness or fainting. These are all involuntary exhibitions or expressions of love. They just manifest by themselves. There's no consciousness of actually doing those at all. So these are the Sattvika bhavs, the 8 Ashtasattvika bhavs. So here in these 4 descriptions about the bhavs that come on the lake of the Stai bhav is basically as much time as we have to discuss Rasa Tattva, just in a very small nutshell of what is Rasa Tattva. And then of course we could speak for many days on the details.
When you say, oh, please forgive him, he has epilepsy. He has
Yes,
seizure disorder.
yes. And Mahaprabhu himself was claiming to have an imbalance in air. He was asking Srivats. So his mother was saying, oh, you have an imbalance in air. And then finally Srivats came to him and said, no, no, actually these bhavs are arising within you. This is deep spiritual emotion which is arising within you.
But Chaitanya should take away our narcissism.
So many, many topics on this subject matter. Today I've simply tried to, again, like I've been doing all the way through, attempting to give you some structure, some sides to the building. And then we can go into the building later on and examine what is inside the building. But at least this is like a study of this Dasa Mula. to take away any sort of intimidation about entering into this Dasa Mula topic, and to give us a hold of it so that we can put it in our pockets. This is why I've been describing each line of the verse carefully each day, so that we can see it very clearly. The first day, we described what is the whole structure, the three Krishna, three Jiva, reconciliation, Abhideya Tattva, and the Prayojan. We see that whole, we get the circle of it. So similarly, in our examining this Rasa Tattva, I've just only attempted to make a structure for us to appreciate its exalted nature and how much we have to practice to achieve even a glimmer of this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, he says, you can never, who can enter into this except that very rare soul, but still we can describe it like in an analytical way to appreciate its exalted nature. So that in itself is great benefit for the jiva, to know it even exists. Can you imagine you go back to your home country and you don't even really know that this Rasa Tattva exists? Some devotees, they have never even really studied at all. What is Sthai Bhav? What is Vyabhachari Bhav? What is this Anubhav? What is the Sattvika Bhav? They haven't really understood the mathematics of it, so to speak, the analysis. So don't be disappointed if you don't understand it just in a moment, but pray to Gurudev and all our Guru Bhagya for their mercy so that we will have a understanding. I was thinking that actually after Gaur Punim, I plan to come back and stay for some time, and at that time I'd like to give more regular classes, perhaps every second day, for a period of a month or even two, and during that time we can pick one of these mulas and we can go much more significantly into it, and we can study each of them, because these make up the whole of the spiritual philosophical truths in existence. There's nothing more than this. These 10, they're called ontological. Ontological means that the complete, original, whole of all the spiritual truths. So, you understand something more than you did at the beginning? Okay. I'm just, again, trying to make a picture. I'm trying to make something very complex, very simple. It is very simple in its essence, because it's about love. And love is the most simple, direct emotion we can experience. Every soul in existence appreciates being loved and the ability to love. But spiritual transcendence involves even more than that. It shows how to really give to the highest object of our affection, Sri Radha and Krishna, in a way that they will be satisfied and will understand. Jai Srila Gurudev ki jai, Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Radha Gopinath Ju ki jai, Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Gopinath Bhavan ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.